really a pleasure to be here and to kick off this afternoon's panel. What we're going to talk about is transformative brain health breakthroughs. And so I could not ask for a better group than the group that you're seeing up here. What you're seeing are the giants and the pioneers of brain health. This is a really remarkable three-person team you're seeing. It's Mark D'Esposito, it's Ian Robertson, and of course, it's the inimitable Sandy Chapman. But these are the true pioneers. These are the true pioneers of brain health right here. So very quickly, Mark D'Esposito is a physician scientist. He is a distinguished professor at the University of California, Berkeley, in their Neuroscience Institute. He is actually a professor of neuroscience, but he's also a practicing physician at the VA. So I want to call that out, that Mark still sees patients at the bedside. We also have Ian Robertson, who is truly one of the leaders in the concept of cognitive neurosciences, emotion, and strategic thinking. He started this a long time ago. He was really the leading expert in Europe on this. He's a distinguished professor at Trinity College. Those of you who don't know Trinity College was founded before there was even the United States of America, all right? And Trinity has the prestige of being equivalent to Harvard, Oxford, and the Sorbonne. And it is really the top tier things. And he founded their Neuroscience Institute for exactly this, brain health. The last person requires, and I should also mention a little thing, that he was the first psychologist to actually be elected to the Royal Academy. So you have a Sir Robert Robertson here. And then we have, of course, Sandy Chapman. And Sandy doesn't really need any introduction to all of us. We know that she pretty much is the mother of brain health science. Truly is. She started this back in the 90s when she was in the third grade. But she really is the leading pioneer, and I could say arguably the mother of the science of brain health. And this is key, because the three of these fine people here are scientists first. And although we talk about all the great things that brain health can bring to bear, it's the science that drives it. It's the science that underpins it. It's the science that gives it credibility, and the science that also defines it. And that is a very important point, all right? This is not some crazy notion. It's a scientific fact, right? So I'm going to start with Mark, if you don't mind, Mark. Everybody in this room knows about Alzheimer's. Everybody in the room knows about stroke. Everybody in this room knows about Parkinson's disease and these other things. You are practicing neurologists, as I am, but we all know that prevention, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. We know this. This is from Benjamin Franklin days. But why is it that our community, that is the practicing neurologists who should be leading this charge, haven't done so?
Start me off with that kind of question? Well, I mean, we talked about the Framingham Heart Project and studied how important it was for understanding, but the heart is the heart and the brain is the brain. I think, the heart is a muscle, and we can understand that if you exercise, you'll strengthen the muscle, and we know that it has arteries, and if you have a heart attack because the arteries are blocked to the heart, and so if we lower cholesterol and lower our blood pressure, we'll block it. So now try to translate that to the brain. What do you do to prevent complicated neurological disorders like Parkinson's disease and Alzheimer's disease and all of these things? There's not this direct link, right? Do we do the New York Times puzzle every day? Do we memorize every Wikipedia page? It's just mind-boggling, right, to think about what to do. So I think neurologists have stuck with what they do best, which was try and treat disease. And unfortunately, that always put us on the defense. We were always trying to do things that would prevent something like dementia or strokes, and we never were on the offense where we thought about, it wasn't clear what the offense should be. But I think you already heard today that we've got now a strategy of how to play offense.
One of the things that you did in your career coming forward is you actually brought in new technologies very quickly. So what Mark did early on is he first started using fMRI, for example, to do these studies. He started bringing in transcortical stimulation. And he's also, of course, used old technologies such as the EEG. But Mark actually brought technology into the study of brain health early on. So Mark, could you actually expand that a little bit? The things that you found looking at what you and I would call objective data.
Right, so I think what, again, came up today, and we can talk about some more, is just the importance of measuring brain function. We haven't had very good neurologists haven't had very good measures of brain function to know if the brain is healthy or not healthy. So, yes, certainly when fMRI came on board, which is almost 30 years ago, it was really one of our amazing technology that allowed us to look at the living brain in a non-invasive way. It was sort of a first time we could really collect data in a way that was affordable and was accessible. And so my work and others was just trying to get markers to understand the brain. And something else that came up today was that instead of just thinking about the brain as all these localized areas of function, this area does that and that does that, and there's more or less activity, really when we started to think of the brain as a network, we really things started to transform. We started to think about how the brain is organized at a very larger scale level and how networks break down, just like electrical grid networks break down and airline networks break down, and then reconceptualized it less as Alzheimer's disease and Parkinson's disease and schizophrenia being different, but actually they're very similar in the way they break down and become less disease-centric and more kind of brain-centric.
No, thank you. So Ian, since you really were truly one of the true early pioneers in this field, the term brain health has kind of evolved. So tell us where you believe a good working definition that people can then bring out to their friends about what brain health is and where we've come in terms of understanding what the impact of it is.
Well, I'm going to say that the data tells us from the Brain Health Project that brain health is a multidimensional factor that involves how clearly we can think and how strategically we can control what we pay attention to, because we have to sometimes go detailed and sometimes we have to go broad, sometimes we have to do one thing, sometimes we have to do nothing. So that's clarity. So that's, we've really begun to define brain health here. And that's second one is what's in your mind captured by anxious thoughts about the future or sad thoughts about the past? Are you in a turmoil of anger or anxiety? Are your thoughts clouded by emotions? That's emotional balance. And thirdly, do you get up in the morning and feel a connection with other people? In your day, do you have that sense of meaningful connection? And do you also feel a sense of purpose? You know what you're getting up for. And so these three dimensions of brain health, that we only really have managed to elicit them and measure them thanks to Sandy's vision for the Brain Health Project, which is 120,000 people of all ages, 19 to 90, followed up over 10 years, 10% of them getting brain imaging, so that we can find the brain correlates. So that's what brain health is, and the aim of the Brain Health Project is to turn things in their head. We don't want people coming in with trepidation saying, have I got this or have I got that? They're coming in to have their networks assessed. That's essentially what we're doing. We're assessing the networks that Mark was talking about. And we're assessing them not to say, oh, too bad, your emotional balance network is stuffed, here's a pill. No, we're not saying that. We're saying, here's your profile. We think you need a boost on clarity. Just as if you go to the gym and you say, yeah, your strength is down, or your flexibility is down, or your aerobic fitness is down. Let's get a program to fix that. And we have these very, very effective means of strengthening and tuning the networks that Mark was talking about. So that's what brain health is.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Ian. So as I said, Sandy is the mother of the science of brain health. So, Mom.
Glad he didn't call me Grandma. The grandmother.
So, Mom, already we've learned so much. Could you share with the group some of the things that we've learned from the Brain Health Project? It is actually producing results today.
Yeah, and before I do, I just want to say I feel so lucky to be on this stage with my co-team collaborators for the Brain Health Project. And Tom Leppert, you heard from, I hope he's still here, who's the other one. And then also Admiral and Georgianne McRaven are here, who are national spokespersons. So we're very fortunate to have all the co-leaders here. And we have a whole team, as you heard earlier, from Jennifer and Julie, collaborators from all over, and many of them are here. And it just brings me so much honor to share some of our early breakthroughs that we now are excited about with our Brain Health Index. So number one, Ian kind of shared it. We have been able to validate the Brain Health Index now on a large group of individuals taken repeatedly, and we are showing that regardless of where you are, it works for people whatever environment they start in. So that's something that we didn't know that would inform people to give them some information about their brain health. The complexity of the brain is so amazing. People always do it in silos and say, what's your memory? Or do you have this? Versus doing a composite. And the composite has really informed people that there's multiple pathways to help you thrive. For those of you that were in the last one we were talking about, to thrive using your brain skills, there's a lot of ways to get there, and the Brain Health Index shows that. So the measurement is very exciting. And it's the first 99% of all of our measures of brain health were developed to detect disease and injury, to see what's wrong. So this is one of the few ones that have been validated to look at the upward potential. And the other interesting thing, and Jennifer pointed it out, that it's not you're in the 90th percentile or the first percentile, but you are you against you. So it really is meant to be motivational and to get you not to compare, because I don't want to be compared to anybody on this panel. The second big breakthrough that we had, we have 30,000 people registered that we're following them. We give them strategies. 75% of the individuals that engage in the strategies show improvement. 75% of healthy people show improvement. The youngest is 18, the oldest right now is 97. The thing that surprised me the most was, and I always ask people, which age group do you think improved the most? 20s, 40s, or 70s? What do you think? 70s, 20s, the same. Shocked me. 20-year-olds suffer for very different reasons, but they improved as much as 40-year-olds, as much as 70-year-olds. So there's ways, and it didn't matter their education, their gender, or what they started. So when it's you against you, that was really exciting and surprised me, because I didn't think, actually I thought older people wouldn't benefit as much because it was technology. And we didn't know if we could do the index online, because we used to do it in person, and it worked just as much and actually even better. I thought younger people would do better because of technology. The older people embraced it, and the one good thing that came out of COVID is people really embraced telehealth. So that was a good thing. The third thing, and we've published one paper, we're getting ready to publish another, and my team is involved in this, finding neuromarkers that go along with when you improve on this index. We want to say, is it just that you improved on these behavioral questions and tests that we're doing? We're actually showing corresponding neuromarkers, and one of them is a hemodynamic response that predicts 90% who improves on clarity, 73% who improved on connectedness, and 67% who improved on emotional balance. That's unheard of. To get that level of correspondence with the neuromarkers to go along with the behavioral measures, so you don't have to do expensive brain imaging. The measurement alone is showing that improvement. So finding that your brain, literally the function of it can improve and the structure of it can improve is very phenomenal. And it's the science, as Geoff started off. The fourth thing is that we are now, and you've heard me allude to it a little bit, is brainomics. Can we begin? So every one of our studies now is beginning to put a value on, if you were to keep your brain healthier next year, what would that value be? If we were to help individuals in underserved communities, middle schoolers, graduate, what would be the economic gain? if we were to help military to reduce depression and stress by depression by 60%, stress by 40%, what would be the cost benefit of that? What if we were to double the life work style that we could have, that we wouldn't think about retirement? Think about the cost. So Brainomics to change policy is a big part of this. And then the scalability. Brain healthy workplaces, the education. We want to think about, in George's question, for us, it's we want communities, we want states. We're ready for your corporation, your community, your whatever it is, to say, I want to be brain healthy, and we want to work with you to make that happen, to scale it.
That's wonderful. Ian, how can we take this to the world?
We have to create a movement, and Admiral McRaven has said this from the very beginning. We have to do when I was growing up, nobody was running on the streets. Your friend's father dropped dead and you didn't think anything of it, really. Well, you felt sad, but that was life.
You didn't steal his shoes, did you?
No, but talking of shoes, Admiral McRaven made the point, we have to make this something that's kind of transmits virally, like Nike shoes or Fitbits, you know. And so we're on the cusp of that, and that's why having all these amazing technology companies here today and venture capitalists, we need to partner with them, because there is for this whole business of brain health, there doesn't exist an infrastructure for delivering the way there is for pharmaceuticals. We have millions of doctors, pharmacists, pharmaceutical salesmen. We have an infrastructure when someone has a chemical, even though that chemical might have quite a small marginal effect. Some of the behavioral things and the technological things we've heard about today and discovered in the Brain Health Project, I think have effect sizes that far outweigh any current pharmaceuticals with virtually none of the side effects. But we don't have an infrastructure to deliver them. So we need the equivalent of we need a Jane Fonda. We need a Jane Fonda. And that's why technologies are very important, because it is a thing you can have rather than an abstract process. We have the technology, the wonderful Brain Health app that's now that we should all download and try. That's part of the technology, but it needs to be a social movement. And that hasn't quite happened yet. And that's one reason, I guess, we're having this summit, is to help the leaders, the amazing leaders here, to try and help come together to create that social movement.
No, I think that's a really great point. We do need a social movement. Jane Fonda, I think that a lot of our participants here don't even know who she is. We probably should use somebody like Taylor Swift. But, Mark, you can't leave out the clinicians. Somehow we have got to bring the clinicians back into this movement and this conversation. And the clinicians, of course, are the neurosurgeons, the psychiatrists, neurologists. We own the brain, basically. How do we do that, Mark? And I want you also to bring in the context of some of the work that you do. I mean, I think that your work speaks to their language, the fMRIs, the transcranial stimulation and transcortical stimulation and things like this. So please.
Yeah, well, I think there's two things we can do. Let me just follow up with Ian. I think one thing physicians need to do is be a place where advice is given to the public on what they should be doing, because there's going to be a million brain games out there, some that are evidence-based and some aren't, and they're going to look to someone to say what does the science tell us about what we should be doing. So I think the more that physicians are going to have to get involved in being engaged into thinking about this like pharmaceuticals, and being the advocate for, and being someone who can explain sort of what the options are. Of course, there's not going to be an answer. Just with exercise now, you'll get a lot of different answers of what type of exercise you should do, but at least it can narrow the field. And then the other part is physicians just need the tools. I say this all the time. When you go get your annual physical, and it was brought up this morning, they examine every organ of your body except for your brain. And it's not their fault. They don't have the tool to measure brain health. So we need to give them the blood pressure cuff, for the brain. And I think this project can get there. It's not going to be an fMRI scan, but the fMRI scan is going to give us the information to how to get a surrogate marker for what we find. When we see networks changing and we think your network should be in this state, that's going to reflect itself in the Brain Health Index or reflect itself in some other physiological response that can be done in a primary care physician's office that will guide them. And then, of course, that'll be something that can be done at home as well. But that's where at least the physicians, I think, will play a big role in promoting brain health.
Thank you. Sandy, what's next? I mean, the project is ongoing. You've got 30,000 enrollees already. Where are we going? Look what we've achieved in the last just couple of years. What does the next couple of years, not the 10 years, but the couple of years promise for us?
So that's why we're here, is to really create actionists in every major community, every sphere of influence, to make you not leave here and go, oh, that was interesting, but really people to know these are things I can do to take action and know where to go. As Mark said, we can't just say do anything because there's a lot of things that don't help you. So being a place, and we will partner with anyone. Brain HQ is one of our partners, Mike Merznick. Many of you here we're partnering with. We want vetted science to help guide people. We want everyone, as Admiral McRaven and Georgianne said, to make brain health sexy, where we remove the stigma and everyone can hardly wait to see, hey brain, are you better next year? And that you can challenge yourself. It's not compete against the rest of the team, but to really find ways every single day that you can make your brain stronger, last longer, because we're living long lives. You don't want to do it if you don't have the imagination, the connectedness, and the emotional balance to know we can make it. So for me, it's starting to grow these core of, whether it's a Brain Health Champion group or Brain Health Core, how do we grow that to become a nation of Brain Health Champions where you can hardly wait and then you're proud of it like a badge versus stigma.
So, thank you, Sandy. So we only have a couple of minutes left, and what I want to do is, with this great panel up here, is take advantage of that they've been on this journey for a long time. So what I want to ask them is, and when we're all on a journey together, sometimes it's difficult to see how much progress you've made, or correct? So I'm going to ask each of them in the last take a minute each or so to talk about where, when they entered the field, where they thought it began and how far we've gone in their perspective, and how far further we can go in actually the short term. So I'm going to start with you, Mark.
I'm always the first one to answer the tough questions. So, yeah, I mean, from my scientist side, I'd say it's amazing looking back on 30 years. I studied the frontal lobes and executive function and cognitive control, all things we've talked about today. And it was, 30 years ago, I wasn't quite sure what that all meant. I'd see a patient with damage to the frontal cortex and really couldn't explain what was going on, and now I think we have sort of a new landscape of what the prefrontal cortex does. I think we're starting to really understand sort of what this part of the brain does and what this ability is, and that allows us to think about ways that we can help it. On the physician side, as a neurologist, and you can probably agree with me, that I can't believe that we're talking about these things as neurologists, that we're talking about mindfulness and aerobic exercise and stress and sleep. These words never came up in our office ever. It always came like, I'll give you a drug or I'll give you a diagnosis. And so this is just amazing that we are embracing it. We're embracing this in such a holistic way as neurologists.
So when I lectured at the University of Edinburgh in the early 80s, I said the brain is not a muscle. Once dead, a central nervous system cell cannot regenerate. That all came from Cayal, the great Nobel Prize-winning Spanish neurologist. That was a complete dominating philosophy. And so I was teaching factually inaccurate information. And then I read a paper by Mike Merznick, who's there in the front row, who made, I regard, a Nobel Prize-winning creditable discovery that actually in the adult central nervous system you have plasticity. And that really is the basis for everything we're doing here. We were evolved to have plastic brains. We have not yet gone this far in harnessing the fact that we can behaviorally and technologically shape the brains through harnessing that neuroplasticity. We've done about 0.1% of that journey.
So mine is, you know, I think that and I agree with everything everyone said, that we haven't even begun to tap the potential of the human mind. You know, 40 years ago, everything I learned has pretty much been reversed too, in terms of what's possible. But we still don't think about brain health until we're old. And when I say brain health, a lot of people say, well, I don't need that yet. I'm like, really? Because we still think about it as an aging thing or something. So for me, it's individuals to know, what is the upward potential of my human mind? And I can strive for it every single day, regardless of where I start, where I am. I can do anything I set my mind to. But the second is to embrace the collective brain power when we come together of teams. You know, we see it in the military, we see it in schools. So that's where the aggregate brain power, we can solve the complexity of problems that we face today that we are not addressing because we get overwhelmed first versus go, almost like what Bruce Mouse said, your brain can take charge of anything and be innovative, and it was wired to solve the hairiest problem. Let's go and solve the hairy problem of making everyone embrace their own potential and the collective brain power.